Welcome, everyone. It is really a gift and a pleasure of mine to be here with you and to introduce you to Backstage Barriers and Beyond. We have an incredible opportunity to hear from a board member alongside our president, Ross Allen, and I get a chance to introduce to you our very own Miss M. Gasby Brown. I'm going to give you a bit of her bio, and then I'm going to get out of the way because you are not here to hear from me. You are here to experience the works that have come through Gasby's lived experience, to be absorbed and taken in, and then perhaps even move you to action. There are a number of pieces back there that may inspire a number of feelings and emotions. There's some celebration that are to be expressed. There is lament. And then there's also this element of reconciliation and shalom. I want to encourage you to take all of that in as you have the opportunity to experience Gasby's reflections and a conversation that she'll host alongside Ross Allen. But let me tell you a little bit about Gasby really quickly. She is the chairperson of two companies. One, the Gasby Group, and secondly, no permission needed. This is a new company that I'm getting accustomed to naming, but this is where the art has grown from for Gasby. Secondly, she's been a faculty member at the fundraising school at Indiana's University Lilly Family School of Philanthropy. So if you meet Gasby, you will learn fairly quickly that her heartbeat is forgiving, and it's forgiving for a greater purpose. Her educational background has included institutions like Harvard University, MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and also Wayne State University. She's an author, an artist, a podcaster, a board member here at Bethel, but I think most importantly are these two things. One, she is a follower of Christ, and she is a mentor of many, including myself. Gasby lifts others as she rises, and I pray that your experience today will take you up to new heights, and we will close with a song that's in that same vein. So, M. Gasby Brown, thank you for joining us, and Ross, thank you for hosting.
Thanks, Ron. So, Gasby, thanks for accepting our invitation to join us, and look forward to our conversation, and thank you for sharing your thought-provoking work with us at Bethel. We're so grateful for your service as board member, and I'm excited to see you following God's lead in continuing your artistic journey. So my first question is, when you say your art is inspired by God, what do you mean by that?
Well, first of all, thank you, Ron Franklin, for such a wonderful introduction that warmed my heart and made me feel real good. And so I need to take you on the road because I liked everything that you said. And Ross, it's really a pleasure to be here. Here at Bethel. It's always good to come, but it is really such a pleasure to be in God's house. That is what Bethel stands for. And so when I say that I was inspired and still am inspired by God, in 2002, I began to have dreams and visions about painting trees and other objects, and they wouldn't leave me. And I think I had a little time, a window of time to ponder on all of this because my husband was involved in a high-profile political campaign, and he was gone a lot, and I had time on my hands. But that doesn't negate the fact that these vivid visions, and awake and asleep, just kept haunting me. So finally, I woke up one morning, and I told my husband, I'm going to start painting. I had never painted in my life in 2002. And I went to the craft store and got paint and brushes and canvas, and that's exactly what I did, started to paint. And in that endeavor, the reason I know that it was inspired by God, because I would paint something and step back and said, I did that? I couldn't even believe that this was something that was coming out of me, and knowing that it was higher than me, and that ergo, the name of the company, No Permission Needed, because I needed no earthly permission to do this. I did not ask my husband, what do you think, honey? It was a declaration. I am going to start to paint because it was definitely directed and it was divinely instructed. And just to give you another spin on this too, because I was known as a fundraising expert and philanthropic expert, there were a group of people who laughed at me when I began to paint. Gasby is starting. Oh, she's called herself painting. And then I had this other group of people who were my cheerleaders. One is in the room today, Lena Horne, and she encouraged me, and another person encouraged me. He said, just hang your art all around your house. And we would entertain a lot at the time, and I did what they said, but this is the lesson I want for audiences to hopefully take away. Go where you're celebrated and not tolerated, and also listen to the voices that encourage you, not those that discourage you. So I went on to paint, and the Lord has blessed it where 350 of my pieces are owned by people across the country, the Caribbean and Canada. And so that starting out with faith and looking at from whence cometh my help was the key.
Thanks, Gasby. The art that you've displayed here depicts 6 iconic African-American singers and their shared yet distinct experiences. You titled it Backstage, Barriers, and Beyond, and so why did you name it that? And what struggles did they face, and why did you select these?
So Ross, you know, when we see successful people and celebrities in particular, we see all the glory, but we don't know the story in many instances. And so because of that, I wanted to make sure that the story was being told about these 6 that were examples of a larger issue that many African Americans were facing. And so with these people, we needed to know what was happening backstage and beyond as you were singing your heart out. So we began to look at these 6. There will be more in the series later, but these were my first initial 6.
Fantastic.
Oh, and I just wanted to add to that. This series, there were mentors and supporters and curators that were involved in this, namely Lena Horne again, also Leroy Campbell, who told me, because this is not the art that I was normally doing. He said, take your cape off and just jump off the ledge. And that's what I did. And also Gilbert Young, who has just been an incredible mentor, a famous artist who is in his own right just brilliant. And Tanya Kopperwitz, who has given me some good input into this series.
So you talk about their stories.
Yes.
As an African-American woman, how do you see your story in each of their lives? And does any one of these particular, or a couple, resonate with you?
Mm-hmm. Well, as an African-American woman, I certainly have faced those kinds of the discrimination and social injustice that has been a part of our society and something that we have to deal with. And so the backstage barriers also have to do with building all of us up to show the character of Jesus, because he was definitely a social justice proponent. And if we are going to have a better world, if we are going to be what we all need to be and want to be, then building that character, and I wanted to expose social injustice in a way that would hopefully resonate with people.
Thanks. All right, so I think we're going to go through each of these.
Yes, yes,
right?
we
So
are.
First one, Ella Fitzgerald. How does your art of Ella Fitzgerald portray the prejudice, the pain, and the discrimination that you just referenced, and
Yes.
that she experienced during the era of Jim Crow? And it also, how does it convey her tenacity and her positive, hopeful spirit? And how does she knock down barriers for herself and for others along the way?
Ella broke barriers through sheer talent. She wasn't necessarily an activist, and by the way, I call my art artivism. But through her sheer talent, audiences loved her so much, white audiences in particular, that she broke barriers by performing in various venues based on demand. So you see here with Ella, her hit song was "A Tisket, a Tasket." He stole my yellow basket. And the question was asked, well, what's in that basket? And part of what was in the basket, as you'll see here, is the Green Book. The Green Book that African Americans who traveled and those who were celebrities or not, They referred to the Green Book so that they would know where they could stay because of segregation. They could not stay everywhere overnight. Hotels or at that time they weren't called Airbnbs, but it was, they could stay with families and stay in hotels that accepted them. So the Green Book was in her basket as far as I saw it in my art interpretation. And also she had to, even though she had this tremendous voice and was able to sing the socks off of anything, she had to go in through the colored entrance, which was a travesty. And in many of the venues where she sang her heart out, she could not go in the audience, have a meal or a drink, and she could not stay at the hotels where she sang. And so despite that, you'll see she has this symbol here on the painting. Even with that, she said A-OK, because she could sing and she knew the value of her voice. And then I have a Greyhound bus there because of the discrimination during that time. All African Americans had to sit at the back of that bus, even the Greyhound bus that was interstate. But then you'll also see, because she was there during the Jim Crow era, there's another basket there that shows both she and Marilyn Monroe. What does Marilyn Monroe have to do with this? Well, Marilyn Monroe was an advocate and true fan of Ella Fitzgerald. And she went to 2 club owners and told one, if you don't have Ella sing here, I'm not coming. And the other one she told, if you have Ella sing here, I will come every night that she sings. So this is another demonstration of the need for white allies, that we're not going to do this alone. And in fact, those people who are white talking to other people who are white have the most impact once you know. And you know, the thing that Maya Angelou said, if you know better, you'll do better. So as we strive for this better world, this is part of that story.
Thanks, Gabby. Thanks for that challenge. The next one.
Okay, the next one is,
Simone.
okay, so now you see the basket up close.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, and the things that are in it. And that's the other one about Jim Crow. And then we have Miss Nina. Now we got a curse word up there, y'all.
Yeah, and I took it out of my script.
I know. I can't say it either. I was taught, you know, don't use the Lord's name in vain. So I will not use it either, but we had to demonstrate it and show it.
But she does have an edgy, and you've portrayed a bit of her edgy and yet honest voice.
Yes.
Of protest and anguish.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So she cursed Mississippi, Nina Simone did, through her work. You know, she was a trained composer and a pianist, and classically trained pianist. And so she wrote this song after Medgar Evers, who was head of the NAACP in Mississippi, was assassinated. And other things had taken place. So you'll see here, and we don't have close-ups of it, but I'll invite you for the exhibit to look closely at this, because I have about 20 civil rights workers who were killed just because they were advocates and proponents of in fighting against injustice. So for example, you'll see there Medgar Evers, you'll see Emmett Till, because these were on piano keys. These are the things that fueled Nina Simone to write and sing her songs. And then you'll see the 4 little girls who were in the bombing, of the church bombing in Birmingham, Alabama. And then I also put, and this took place in Mississippi, Goodman, Cheney, and Schwerner, who were civil rights workers who went down to protest, and they were killed. And then Viola Liuzzo. How many people have ever heard of Viola Liuzzo? Nobody, no hands. One hand, okay. Viola Liuzzo was a homemaker, and at that time called a housewife, and felt in Detroit. And she felt so strongly about the civil rights movement until she went down to Mississippi to help protest, and they killed her. And her family, she had children, they were left without a mother, and she had a husband, and he was left a widower because of that kind of hate and injustice that took place. So Nina was edgy, And so this is edgy too. I've got all kinds of things in here that I believe represent what she was really interpreting through her music.
And then next, I think we have Lena Horne.
Lena Horne.
So she's an incredibly gifted woman who fused activism within her art. Help us see how your work inspires our understanding of her fight for change and the enduring need for change.
Yes. Well, Lena Horne is a very interesting singer and actor. She walked the line because she was too light for some and too dark for others. So she had a hard time on walking that line, and her song was Stormy Weather. So you can see, and I think we have a close-up, not yet, well, underneath her umbrella, and you can see that the raindrops are falling. But under that umbrella are the people, the firemen who were putting hoses on civil rights workers. Now these were people who were paid by municipal funds, but here they were turning these fire hoses on people who were just protesting because they wanted to vote. Paid by, and some of their tax dollars were going for these people to hoist this horrible action upon them. So under the umbrella, you'll see protests, marchers. Lena Horne was very much a supporter financially of the civil rights movement. And so you see that within this piece as well. Also, she went to Hollywood, was the first Black African-American actor to have a formal contract with MGM. And that was because her father went to Louis B. Mayer, who was the head of the studio, and said, yes, you're going to hire my daughter. I know you want her because she's just absolutely beautiful, drop dead gorgeous. And they wanted to put her in movies. He said, but you are never, ever going to put her in a movie where she plays a maid. And that was put in the contract, that she would not ever, ever play a maid. And she had in her mind that she would get more roles. She didn't play a maid, but she always played the beautiful singer, torch singer in the clubs. And she really wanted the role of the woman who, the role for Showboat. And it was a singer on Showboat, and she was a mulatto. And Lena Horne thought, oh, okay, they're going to choose me. This is perfect, the perfect role for me. But they chose Ava Gardner and gave her dark makeup to play the role instead. So that was a big disappointment. But she was very much involved. Paul Robertson, or some people say Robertson, but I listen to his son and he says Robertson, so I'm going to say Robertson. He helped to school her on inequity. And that's what opened her eyes to a lot of the injustices. And then she also really navigated with Harry Belafonte and James Baldwin quite a bit. And so that is what fueled her. But one of the things that's in this piece that's noteworthy is that she went down to visit Medgar Evers. And she went that night, and the next morning she got the news that he had been assassinated. So this was really, really very heavy on her heart as well. So that's Lena.
Got it. Next we have Mahalia Jackson.
Mahalia Jackson, Move On Up a Little Higher was her song. And that was her hit with the bullet, as we say. But Mahalia Jackson, a lot of people didn't know how much she contributed financially to the civil rights movement and was a confidant of Martin Luther King. And to the point where she was put on the program for the March on Washington. There she is, number 14, I guess. That was a long program, too. And you can see Martin Luther King looking at her there. And she's saying, I've been buked and I've been scorned. And then she also sang, I believe, Precious Lord. But she made her contribution there. But was, I think, maybe little known to some people and more known to others. And there are two stories about it. One story was that Martin Luther King was making his notes, and he was still making his notes for his speech, and she recommended something to him. The other story on how he should approach the speech. The second story is that She was in the audience, Mahalia Jackson, and she could look out and see the throngs that there were over 100,000 people at the 1963 March on Washington. She looked out over the throngs, and as Martin Luther King was giving all of his preamble to the speech, she saw that the crowd was getting restless. And she said, "Tell him to dream." And that's how "I Have a Dream" manifested itself and became the iconic speech that we know.
Yeah. Fantastic. Anything else on Mahalia?
I think that's it for now, even though, she was also asked many, many times to get into secular music, and she refused to do that. She said, "God gave me this voice, and I'm going to use it for his glory." Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, next we got Billie Holiday.
We have Billie with "Strange Fruit."
How does your artwork capture Billie Holiday's pain while also portraying her powerful message against lynching, the black experience? And can you tell us about her groundbreaking defiance of segregation by singing to integrated audience despite getting criticized?
Yes, I'll start with that. Billie Holiday was the first to integrate Cafe Society, which was a New York club. And at the point of, in the 50s, they never had a black singer in the club entertaining, but she was the first. And as a result of that, she broke a barrier there. But many of you know the story of Billie Holiday, and she had a troubled past, and she had a troubled career because of drugs and other things. And the drugs were a manifestation of some of the pain that she had experienced. So with Billie, that's why I gave her these talons on the end of this hand to, one, protect herself from vulnerability, and also the fact that she had to still be tenacious no matter what. And so on each fingernail, when you go and actually see the piece, I have the names of some of her songs on each of the fingernails. And then you can see quite obviously there, "Strange Fruit" came out of her pain of seeing a lynched body as she was touring through the South. And you see the lynched man on the violin string there. She was really protesting lynching. And of course, "Strange Fruit" was "Strange fruit," one of the first stanzas, "Strange fruit hanging from the poplar tree." That's real strange fruit, to have a lynched man. And we know that during that season of lynching too, that the atrocity and what is so mind-boggling, that whole families would come out and watch lynchings on a Sunday afternoon for entertainment. So this says we can do better. We have done better, but we can do even better. And so that is what I'm portraying there. And of course, the huge gardenia that she wore in her hair. And the story behind that is, for those of us in the African American community who used to straighten our hair with a hot comb, she was straightening her hair with a hot comb just before going on stage, and she burned her ear. And so in order to cover up the burnt ear, she put the gardenia on the side, but it became a signature for her appearances beyond that. And so "Strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees," and what Billie Holiday stood for. And she was blackballed from many people in many clubs. Walter Winchell wrote about her scathingly, and Hedda Hopper, who were columnists at that time. Many of you students have never heard of them, but they were famous columnists, and careers were made and built on what they would say. And they criticized her and told her to just shut up and sing. That sounds like somebody said shut up and dribble, but that's what took place with her.
So tough. Yeah, so hard to process.
Yes.
Next, Alicia.
So now we have Alicia, because I wanted to bring something up more contemporary.
Some of our students might recognize Alicia.
Yes, maybe, I hope you do. And she is certainly an activist, both for women's rights and both for civil rights, and was very active during Black Lives Matter, and even wrote a protest song called "Perfect Way to Die." And that was her way of giving voice to the voiceless through her songs, because she's such a brilliant composer and an artist. And in this piece, you can also see, when you actually see the piece in person, that say their names is there. Also, I have police crossing tape in that piece, along with George Floyd, Trayvon Martin, Sandra Bland, and Michael Brown. Their pictures are there to just be a reminder of why, even today, we must fight.
Let me ask you to expand on the giving voice to the voiceless. Expand on that.
Well, so many of us would love to have our voices heard and to speak out against injustice, but we worry about, well, who's our audience and who's going to listen? Well, singers like Alicia Keys, they have a built-in audience and people who already respect them, like them, they're fans, and they are influencers. And to her credit, she has used her singing voice and her voice, her speaking voice, to speak out against injustice.
All right, so I think we've covered them. And
Okay.
Haley talked about her calling was from God. And for you, Gasby, you've talked about that a little bit, but as an artist, as a businesswoman, as a professor and consultant, and all the things that you've done, how do you see your giftedness as a calling from God?
So this quote here, my art is a sum total of my life experiences. I can't paint and create something that I don't know about. And that's why I listen to a lot of music too. I listen to all of the music of those women that I painted about at the time. But I listen to music, all kinds of music, when I'm painting, from Lauren Daigle to Prince to commissioned and C.C. Winans and maybe Michael Franks, or just any number of artists that I listen to. But to answer your question about that, my life is like a lesson in English punctuation, and I'll tell you why. It has commas, semicolons, and periods. And I was born the baby of the family to an itinerant Baptist preacher, and a mother who was a homemaker but took in laundry when she needed to help the economy of our family. And then I went on to be a Sunday school pianist and the soloist in my church, and even to the point in high school I played and sang the part of Queen Amneris in the opera Aida. So we put a semicolon there. And then I was a very young newlywed and mother, and then became a divorced single mother, and put a comma there. And then to earn a living, I became a supermarket cashier, and I inspected spark plugs for a while just to make an honest living. So we put a semicolon there. Then I became a college student and a community organizer, a committed Christian. Even though I grew up in the church, I had to accept Jesus for myself, and I became a committed Christian along the way. Although I did believe when I was baptized, it was still, I call myself a carnal Christian. And so I needed to be able to become a committed one. And a motivational speaker, became that, and a model. So we'll put a semicolon there. And in the meantime, as Ron had mentioned, I started out at a community college and then matriculated to Wayne State University, and then went on to Harvard, and then went on to do advanced research at MIT. And then I can't talk about my experiences without talking about hurt and loss. And I lost my parents at I was grown, but I lost them early in my mind. And so that was hurt, and lost my sister 3 years ago, and felt very lonely because I came from a very small family. And but that's part of when I'm painting, I'm feeling. So I'm painting that out too. And then I went from there to be an on-air personality and TV reporter with Fox Television in New York. And with BET, I was a New York correspondent for entertainment and met all manner of people because of that. Had my own talk show called Stars Talk, which was syndicated on 250 radio stations across the country. So God is all in it, right? And I wanted to show this collage because I have met and chatted with 3 first ladies of presidents: Laura Bush, Michelle Obama, and Hillary Clinton. Really great chats. I did some work with Kevin Durant, and you can see, aren't we young there? Look at Denzel and me. I interviewed him, and we got on very well in the interview. So we put a semicolon there. Then I even appeared on stage with the Temptations and sang My Girl with the Temptations one time. And there's a semicolon there. And then having the privilege and being blessed to have executive positions with Greenpeace, where I was the National Communications Director, and with the National Urban League, Senior Vice President of both Communications and Development, and then with the Washington National Opera, where I was the Executive Vice President there at the Washington National Opera. And that's me and my best girlfriend, my best bud, and we're dressed up to go to the opera. And then I remarried, and there was a period there for a reason. That's it. That's my Kenny Boo. So yes, so got remarried, and then was able to, the Lord just blessed me to be full of information, and authored several books, and we'll put a semicolon there. And then now I have a family, y'all, a big family, where I am a mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, and a bonus mother, and an aunt and godmother, and you see the names there. So that tells the story of my experiences, so that you can get a sense of what comes out of me is what is in me.
Wow, we learned a lot about you there. Trying to think of how we utilize all those skills. So Gasby, how did you come to realize and recognize that your talents, especially about art, could be used by God to make a positive impact? And what do you hope to achieve with it?
One of the books that I wrote is called The Art of Praise, and it's a 31-day devotional praise and prayer. And because I know from whence this talent comes, I am just committed to making sure that He gets all the glory. So that devotional was one way of expressing it, and this series and others are a way of expressing what I believe the Lord would want me to do. I feel so, it's such a unique and comforting feeling that I've never had before, that I am totally in God's will. And as a result of that, I'm just going to press on, because, you know, there's a windshield. The windshield in a car is bigger than the rear view mirror for a reason. And that's because we need to continue to look ahead, and that's what I'm doing.
Fantastic.
In His name.
Nothing better. So how do you hope African Americans, women, people in general in the Bethel community interact with your art? And follow up on this experience, and yeah.
Well, I kind of alluded to it earlier. I just believe that once we know, we can use that knowledge. There's one thing to have knowledge, but applied knowledge is even better. So to the extent that people can have a takeaway from the stories behind these pieces and feel that injustice is wrong, to be able to say, what can I do? And ask the question, what can I do to make a difference? And that's the takeaway that I would love everyone to have. And even in the creation of this, I had to ask myself, what can I do? Even aside from bringing this teaching and what we call didactic art and artivism into the fore. And I can't thank you enough for Bethel having invited me to share these stories, because the student population here is just phenomenal and eager to know, because this is a critical thinking institution. And as you are engaging in critical thinking, think about what can be done for change to take place, because change is needed.
Fantastic. Do we segue to our musicians now, or?
Well, we can. Is that it?
I think that's it.
Do we have a question?
For a couple questions.
Oh, questions from the audience?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll let you.
Yeah, I'll invite you all. You can just raise your hand if necessary. I can throw a microphone to you, but we have about 8 minutes or so for Q&A. So any question that has been brewing as you experience the pieces or heard these reflections, feel free to ask, and we can continue to explore with Gasby.
Hi, Gasby. My name is Talia.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good.
I'm a journalism student, and I'm curious about the style of your work and if there are people that inspire this style. You talked about how you started painting trees, and this style is very different from, I would imagine, what you started painting.
Yes.
So how did you transition to this style and what inspired it?
Yes, this is very different than a tree, right? And as I mentioned before, but I'll elaborate on that too, it was Leroy Campbell, who is a wonderful artist, who just urged me, because sometimes I would paint and be in a safe space, but being an artist means that you stretch out. You're bolder than what you would normally be. And we were talking on the phone, and I said, well, I don't know about putting 2 eyes and 2 lips. He said, why not put 2 eyes and 2 lips? He said, just take off your cape and jump off, off the ledge. And that emboldened me. And then Gilbert Young said, he said, don't be afraid to make mistakes in your art. You can always paint over it. So I began to put that in my heart and head, that that's the way to approach it, and to just really be very bold, because this is the boldest I've ever been, but I'm going to stay on this path.
Great inspiration for all of us. Take off, cape, and jump.
Yes, yes.
So you said at first that you were just doing it in your home, and your friends were like, you should just hang it up around your house when you host people. So at what point did you start making your art more public and sharing it with others?
Couple of things. A couple of those same people who laughed at me asked me, Gasby, how can we buy a piece of your art? It was so ironic. And more people began to ask. I didn't create it ever to sell. It was cathartic for me to just get it out of my head and heart. And so my husband, who's a brilliant marketer, he said, we've got to have a show. And my first show was in 2004 at the Jefferson Hotel in the Grand Foyer. And at that, we sold 30 pieces. And I was so green at that time, and still green to some extent on it, that I didn't know 30 pieces being sold in a show was good. But it was very good, I've learned later. And so that was the impetus to make it more public. And then I began to get invited to exhibit my art at various galleries and exhibitions across the country. And so that was God, yeah. And in fact, I ordered a t-shirt the other day because I keep saying this and I want it to be just something I wear. Won't he do it? I think we had a question here.
Gasby, you mentioned that this was part of a series. There were going to be more paintings in this series. Are you comfortable telling us any more about that? Like what other figures?
Yeah, I'll reveal a couple because artists steal from each other. So, but I am going to focus on Josephine Baker because of the work that she had done. I'm definitely going to do Aretha Franklin and a couple others that'll be nameless now. But the idea is to add to this series. And then somebody challenged me to say, well, where are the men? Well, yeah, that may be there, but it depends on how the Lord leads me on that.
First, I want to thank you for being here. It's a blessing to have you here, and it's a wonderful blessing to hear the history lesson that comes with the art.
Thank you.
My question is, how does your art impact all the other roles that you do?
Well, I'm a full-time artist now. This is not a hobby. And so I've had to compartmentalize that left brain, right brain thing is real, because in my other career, I had to think differently than I think when I'm creating. However, when I'm speaking, I kind of get a little creative there, so I can see a little crossover there. And when I'm thinking about problem solving, for example, in the philanthropic world, there are lots of problems that need to be solved, right? And so in looking at creative ways for donors to be a part of an institutional hug, and those kinds of things have kind of crossed over from time to time. Thanks for your questions. Any others?
I was just going to say, you've given, I assume everyone has taken away a couple things that you've said that has challenged us, inspired us, and caused us to realize what role we have, what voice we have. So yeah.
Thank you, Ross. It's just been delightful to be here and to see all of these people in this wonderful library, and thanking Ann Gannon and her team for just the marvelous work, and all of you. I don't want to miss any names. So we are now going to, you're going to introduce the next song, or should I?
Yes.
Okay.
Do what you are interested in
Well,
sharing about this piece.
I'll preface it with this. There was someone, and I think it was T.D. Jakes, who asked John Lewis, you know, who said we need to get into good trouble, John Lewis, Congressman John Lewis. He said, what do you think about the Black Lives Matter movement? And John Lewis took a moment. He said, I think it's really, really good, but they need a song. There is no protest song that goes along with Black Lives Matter. He said, the thing that fueled us during the Civil Rights Movement were songs that energized us. So this song, written by James Weldon Johnson, Lift Every Voice and Sing, it was his poem that was set to music by his brother. And this is what you're going to hear. The words are on the back of the programs that you have. So if you'll join the singers and they'll lead it off, Lift Every Voice and Sing, and we'll stand for that.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun, let us march on till victory is won.
All right, thank you.
Family, I want to invite you to absorb those words, to think about what they not only mean to the Black community, but also to your community, to communities of faith, to people who are pursuing God's redemptive work in the world for God's glory and our neighbor's good. I did not anticipate the emotions that would well up in me as we sing these words together, but I ask that you be blessed as we go and make the world a better place together. I will invite you also to take a look at the pieces as you exit this space. You can spend some time connecting with Gasby and Ross. Let me end with a quick word of prayer, both for the food and for our experience together as we build this community to be one that is more reflective of the house of God. Lord, we thank you for who you are, for what you have done, and what you are continuing to do in the midst of histories and current realities of pain, struggle, but also uplift and a rising, just like the sun that comes new every morning. Lord, we thank you that you have brought us together for this moment. We thank you for the gift that you have given to M. Gasby Brown and her artistic expressions and her ways of bringing forth the realities of what has been presented in these forms of art, and the musicians that have been presented, and what it means for not only the history and heritage, but to our lives together today. We ask that you continue to give your Holy Spirit's presence within us so that we continue to make all things new alongside you, Lord. We ask that you bless the food that some incredible hands have prepared for us, and we ask that you bless our time together moving forward. And it is in your Son's name that we pray. Amen.